Hey guys, it's Goose, and welcome to my very first ever podcast episode. First of all, if you don't know me, I make Madden Mobile videos, and I've been doing that for around 6 years, and if you have come from me watching Madden Mobile, welcome to my very first podcast episode. I haven't done a lot of preview for this yet. I've made a couple little announcements in my videos, but I'm going to be starting doing some podcast-style content really very soon, starting with today, and going into the NFL season, and who knows how long it'll last. This is something I've kind of been wanting to do for a while, and somebody that's going to help me and be on the podcast is one of my friends, Zach. Zach, you will see in this video today, and today we also have a special guest in Madden Mobile, Slay. Most of you who know me and have watched me already know who that is, obviously. So, today's video, we are going to be talking about fantasy football. Me and Zach are in a Dynasty fantasy football draft, so that's what today's video is going to be. But in the future, I'm going to do a very quick little thing in this video, and then in a future video, I'm going to do a lot more detail about what to expect in the future from some of these podcast videos. But Zach and I decided we talk about sports and a lot of stuff all the time. We have our own little things that we just talk about with sports and all that stuff. We are both huge Detroit sports fans, and obviously football fans and everything too. And I'm a hockey fan. I've got into some baseball this year. He's a big baseball fan, some basketball. We kind of know a lot of stuff about a lot of different sports. And obviously, like I said, big Detroit sports fans, and really for us, huge football fans. So, like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of NFL content, probably some weekly videos, some weekly podcast style stuff. We also want to do some stuff having to do with Detroit sports and things like that. And who knows what else? We're just going to try to have some fun with it, do some fun stuff, and just have fun talking about sports and different stuff like that. I'm very, very excited. This is something I've never done before, but I really want to do, and if I have fun with it, then who cares what else happens? But if you guys enjoy it, please let us know. I'd love to continue doing this, and I have big plans for the rest of the year. So enough talking for now. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys enjoy our very first podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of our NFL podcast, or whatever you want to call it. We haven't come up with a name exactly yet, but I'm super excited to get into this. Welcome, everybody. I am Ian. Zach is here. He is one of my friends in real life. You guys will see him in pretty much every single video that I'm going to be doing that has to do with NFL and all this sort of stuff. We'll probably do more of an introduction video here very soon, just talking about what we're going to do more with on the channel. And we also have a special guest today, Madden Mobile Slay, one of the OG Madden Mobile YouTubers, who is going to be helping us talk about fantasy football. Thank you for joining us, Slay. Say what's up.
What up, guys? Pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Zach, if you want to say a quick hello, welcome
What's up, boys?
The first video. Yeah, I'm excited to get into something new. I've been doing Madden Mobile for years, 6-7 years, something like that. So some new content is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to try it out, and you guys will have to let us know in the comments below what you think about our content. So today's content, we are going over, Zach and I are in a Dynasty Fantasy Football League that we started this year, and we just had a draft about a week or so ago. And we are going to be kind of recapping our draft. We're going to talk about our drafts, the whole draft in general with everybody, and Slay's going to give some insight because he's huge on fantasy football. He works with the Fantasy Footballers, one of the top, if not the top, football podcast, and yeah, we're just going to be kind of recapping our drafts, talking about it, and all that fun stuff. So let's get into it, I guess. I don't know where this is going to go, but we're just going to go. We're just going to talk about this fantasy football draft and fantasy football in general, and hope you guys enjoy. So, starting us off, this is the 12-man fantasy football dynasty league, first year that we started. So yeah, we've got a bunch of guys. Some of these guys used to be on YouTube. I've done fantasy football with these guys, just a regular. I think we had a keeper league for a little bit, and I think I'm still in that one as well. But I had Zach join this year, and yeah, it'll be fun for us to kind of recap this year. What we're probably going to do is do some weekly episodes just talking about the NFL and fantasy football as well, and kind of, since we're in the same league, kind of talk about our matchups and kind of be on the same page and just kind of recap stuff. And this is just kind of the start, kind of talking about how our drafts went, how we think everybody else's drafts went, and just kind of compare from there. So I guess we'll start with just kind of really quick going over the first couple rounds, and then maybe we can individually talk about what we thought with our own picks, and then once again. So I guess, Slay, if you want to start, out of like the first like 5 picks, right? Is this something in a dynasty league you think you would expect, or what do you think when you look at the first few picks that they went in this draft?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely will have to say I think that like overall, I think things look pretty good. If you take a look at the first few picks, you got Jefferson, Taylor, Chase, Cook, and Swift going off the board. That's pretty much pretty straightforward. I know you have like guys like Najee, and then you also have like McCaffrey going down as well. Really, a lot of dynasty drafts have been taking Javonte higher, closer to like top 5. I know Javonte looks like he went here in the 10th overall, so it's going to be interesting to see what that backfield looks like with Melvin Gordon. And then obviously Russell Wilson, who is no longer a Seahawk, unfortunately. He is probably going to be able to do some fireworks with Javonte, and the passing game with the running back is just going to be huge for leagues that give half or a full point for PPR. But overall, I think it looks pretty strong. I think you take a look at the first overall pick, right? Justin Jefferson, pretty much the top receiver outside of like Jamar Chase. I think it's kind of like 1 or 2 there,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was starting up the draft, we didn't know exactly how what the top maybe 10 is going to be, or just the general order of how things are going to go. And especially the first few picks are kind of interesting. This is my first year doing a dynasty draft, so it's a little bit different for me, knowing that you're not necessarily only going for best player this year. You might want to plan for to future. So some of the older backs were McCaffrey. He might, obviously he's had injuries the last few years. Last year in one of my leagues, I did have McCaffrey first overall, and obviously that happened with injuries again. So he obviously is going to take a fall in regular fantasy leagues, but in Dynasty, he falls to 7, where, he might still, if he can stay healthy, which is definitely a question mark at this point, he can be solid. But if, you definitely have those concerns, so that's probably why he fell so far back. For me, I had 5, and so I'm a Lions fan. My name of my team is Detroit Lions Theme Team.
Man.
Naturally, I'm gonna gravitate towards Swift there. I know Harris might have been the better pick, and I might regret that, but I think with the Lions kind of on the up right now, I've heard good things about Swift in training camp, looking really good in the receiving game. Who knows? It could be a bad pick, but that's just what I was thinking.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's always so fun, and you gotta keep in mind, like when you're playing Dynasty, right? This is your team forever. So you want to have guys that you're going to believe in, guys that you feel confident that you'd be able to trade. I think the fact that Swift is still so young is like such a plus, right? And I think you took him in a good spot. He probably on average goes around 7th overall in these drafts, but like taking him at 5, I think someone like Najee Harris is still a question mark. I think obviously he had a really good changeup, but the offense is like completely different in Pittsburgh this year, and they're looking to try and find someone to help with the wide receiver game, and who knows what his role is going to be. And then, like you said, dude, like CMC is the worst when it comes to just like overall reliability. And I think the safest place to take CMC early is a dynasty, because you have long time and you have a long tenure with these players. But dude, CMC for redraft and people that have trusted him after that one of a kind year is just like brutal these days.
No, absolutely. I know. It was tough. It was, we didn't know where McCaffrey was going to go. I think that was the biggest question mark that Zach and I had. I think we were together for a lot of the first part, and we were waiting. So kind of the way this draft went, everybody was online for most of it. We had 8 hours per pick for this draft. Pretty much everybody was online for most of it, and then there was I think Maya took a while, so it would always be like either right before me or right after me, and then you'd be Jared took a while, especially in the first couple rounds. So Zach and I were just kind of waiting, and we didn't know because Zach's right after Jared, so we were just waiting to see. Because Zach, who did you? I think you did want Cup, right? Is that where you were hoping
I said
you'd still get?
I mean, I really wanted Eckler, but Eckler was way too early at the time, so I just wanted to wait. I wanted whoever dropped out of Cup and McCaffrey, because Cup is going to have an insane season again this year. The offense is going to be just as good, and he's going to get just as many targets. And then McCaffrey obviously is still really young, and he's insane when he plays. So, I mean, there was no lose for the scenario there. So whoever Jared took, I was going to take the other guy, and he took McCaffrey. So Cup fell right in my lap at the 8th pick.
At the 8th pick. Yep, and That, I mean, what rest of the first round we got CD went right after that, Javonte as Slay said, and then Joe Mixon, first tight end off the board, Kyle Pitts in the first round, last pick of the first round. I think that was an interesting one, especially because Waddle then went Josh Allen, so everybody else going really running back, wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. Obviously there was a couple other quarterbacks here and there, Andrews as well, late second round, but taking a tight end and a quarterback immediately was definitely not. I wouldn't say questionable because they're 2 fantastic picks. It's just different based off everybody else's draft.
Yeah, and to remind the audience, what's the scoring for this league? So what are quarterbacks scoring per touchdown, and then is it half or is it full PPR?
It's full PPR, and then what did we? I think they bumped
touchdown.
up.
Touchdown is
did
5.
Did they bump it up?
And then
okay.
Yeah, touchdown is 5, and then passing yard they bumped. So it's 5 points per 100 yards instead of 4 points per 100 yards. So they boosted quarterback, so we didn't have to do super flex.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't have a
5.
super flex, so we have 2 flexes. Yep.
Yeah. So and what's cool about Dynasty is that obviously you can adjust the scoring to be however you like, and usually a typical Dynasty with 12 teams, 4 points per quarterback is pretty standard. Like you guys mentioned, 25 yards a point is standard. So the fact that you're giving them 5 points and you also are giving a little bit extra for yards is massive, right? And I think that that gives value to the 12th spot to take Josh Allen there. And yeah, I definitely think that if there's any person to take there, I'd be taking Allen or Herbert, 1 or 2. So it's quick, but Kyle Pitts, that dude is crazy. He broke all these records as a rookie, and who is the only thing that as far as future of today, the quarterback for the Falcons I believe is still Mariota, and then they have that rookie quarterback. So I think Pitts is going to be able to shine through despite that. But again, when you're thinking about Dynasty, it's never what is their situation now? It's how young are they? What does their outlook look like? And that's kind of the fun that's different with Dynasty drafts, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And like I said, Ritter, I ended up picking Ritter in my rookie draft, which we'll get to. I picked him last. Who knows if that'll... there's definitely a world in which Ritter plays this year. I think Mariota's, 1 on the depth chart right now. But, and who knows how that's going to go. There's been flashes with Las Vegas that Mariota looked good, but who knows? It's Atlanta is definitely a question mark, especially with quarterback this year. But if Ritter, turns out to be a very solid quarterback, then obviously, like you said, you have to think about Pitts that way. Where in the future, if he has a good quarterback, or if they're going to draft, chances are Atlanta's not going to be very good this year. So, and I know the upcoming year is a very strong quarterback year. So you're always looking at if Ritter doesn't look like he's going to pan out, if you're gonna be in a spot to pick a franchise quarterback, regardless of who you have right now, you might want to end up doing that. It depends. It just completely depends. And Pitts is definitely a question mark, but. So yeah, that was the first round. That's the way that shook out, and then we started making our way back the other way. Zach, so Davante Adams fell to Zach. What was your thought process? Who did you want? Because I know we were at the gym, I think, and we were just waiting, and you really wanted Davante Adams, and you were just waiting for him to fall to you.
I did. I wanted Davante. I mean, I wanted Eckler. Obviously, Eckler went, 3 picks before, so I couldn't take Eckler. And then I think I told you I was going to pass on Henry either way, even if he fell to me, just because I know he just got injured. He'll be very good this year, but they just drafted his replacement eventually, you would assume. And I just don't know if they're going to cut his workload, if he's going to get as many carries, which means maybe less touchdowns. I just am not sure. And Kupp is a wide receiver 1. Davante Adams was a wide receiver 2 last year. So to be able to draft the top 2 receivers in fantasy football last year, I just couldn't pass it up at that point.
Absolutely. I know you were super excited. You're like, I just got the wide receiver 1 and 2. And it's definitely your running backs might take a little bit of a hit because really you're looking for your very top players in the first 2-3 rounds. But like you said, if you get a chance to get Kupp and Davante Adams in the same draft and have your wide receiver 1 and 2, you kind of can't pass that up. So
it was a very win now approach as well, because obviously Davante Adams and Kupp probably have 4 or maybe 5 very good years left,
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, someone who drafts like CD Lamb's going to be really good for a really long time.
Yep.
Or like just any of the younger guys. I mean, I already had Cup. I saw Adams there. I figured might as well just go win now and take the top two receivers currently.
Yeah. And I think I think I talked to you about this too. It's kind of like a really interesting with Dynasty. It's just a really interesting thing, right? Let's say you're in a win now mode. Let's just say, for example, you have a player like Tom Brady, right? Right now in Dynasty, that may not be the very best pick because you know you're not going to have him for very long, right? You might be very good this year, and if you're in a win now mode, then that's fine. But I think another way to look at it is, let's say you are in a win now mode, or you draft a Tom Brady when you would normally pick a quarterback or whoever else that might be a little bit younger, you might get more use out of. You got to think of it either if you're in a win now mode. Let's say first of all, first case scenario, your fantasy team is doing very well, and you really think you have a good chance to go far in the playoffs, make the playoffs. Then you're going to want to keep that Tom Brady because you're not. If you have a chance to win a championship in the league and win a ton of money, then you're obviously going to take that. But let's say the other side of it is when you are not doing well and you still have this player like Tom Brady who may not even play past the season, right? Then there's going to be maybe another team that's looking to bolster their quarterbacks. I don't know, just kind of looking at some of the other teams and who else has quarterbacks. I'm trying to think of, let's see, Visible has the fourth, according to Dynasty Ranker, fourth best team overall. He's only got Trey Lance and Matthew Stafford. Trey Lance could be good this year, but there's also a world in which he's not. Matthew Stafford is Matthew Stafford, so that's probably pretty good. But let's say Visible's heading into the playoffs, and Tom Brady's having a fantastic year. You're not making the playoffs. So that pick that you made earlier in the year with Tom Brady, when you could have taken somebody much younger that you're going to have for much longer, you could just trade that away and get picks in the future, get a different quarterback that's maybe younger. It's definitely an interesting way to think about it because you can kind of see both sides. You can draft a younger quarterback or a younger player you're going to have longer, but you can also take it as either a player that's going to help you to win or help another team to win, and you get draft capital or anything else back from a trade. So, like I said, it's definitely an interesting way to think about it with Dynasty.
I will also add, I agree. And, I've been playing Dynasty for 5 years or more. And, the whole concept of, are you drafting for a win now team or, a win later team? The reality is, you want to win every year. No matter, it's not the mentality isn't I'm trying to, I got a bunch of young guys. So, I'm going to use that to justify that, my team sucks because I'm going to be awesome in, 7 years. No one wants to wait 7 years to win a championship. You want to win now. So I like, with Zach, what you did with your wide receivers. And one of the things that I recommend to a lot of people when they start their dynasty drafts is to start wide receiver immediately. And the reason is because you take a look at the average lifespan of a elite running back in the NFL and for fantasy, they are a 2 to 3 year deal. DeAndre Swift is a fantastic player, but DeAndre Swift being a top 5, top 10 running back in 3 years is very, very low. But for Cooper Kupp and for someone like these receivers, their lifespan lasts so much longer because, one, it's not as brutal of a position. There's not as much turnaround. Guys get big contracts and stay consistent. So actually building around, I built a lot of different dynasty rosters just around wide receivers, and I've often had kind of cheaper backs like a James Conner or a Clyde Edwards or a David Montgomery to take a shot, and my wide receivers consistently will keep me getting to the playoffs because they have that volume. They're getting a lot of targets and share. So I love that you went Cooper Kupp and then Adams. I think Adams definitely, it's going to be interesting to see how he does with Derek Carr. I don't think there's going to be much of a difference just because of how good he is, but having back-to-back wide receivers is definitely strong.
Yeah, I think I went that exact route almost. I just figured, the running backs too, they're just so replaceable. I feel like a lot of the running backs, you almost half the time somebody gets hurt, you can just pick up a running back on waivers almost every week. Somebody gets hurt and you just pick up a new running back. And just the receiver position, I feel like those third, fourth string guys who never play, even if they get in the game, they're just always underutilized. If your top receiver's hurt, you almost always go to the run game a little more than you usually do. If a running back gets hurt, they'll still go to that second string almost just as much as they go to that first string.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, and I think you see a lot more teams now that are kind of setting up more running back tandems rather than a single top running back. You don't see that as much just because of the brutality of it, which is why you see McCaffrey getting injured so much. Derrick Henry got injured this year. I'm not saying that's the exact reason, but it definitely plays a big part into it, especially with McCaffrey, who has taken so many carries the last few years. And then you see like I said, plenty of teams. The Browns is a pure example. They probably the very best running back duo in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So with running backs, it's just tough because if you have a team that has a running back 1 and not so great running back 2, the running back 1's getting a lot of carries. Obviously, it might be great for fantasy. At the same time, a lot probably higher risk to get injured. It's just like I said, it's a hard thing to think about, but running backs definitely iffy. And then just kind of for an example, I know we're not going to go through like every single round and like kind of go through everything. I think this is something that we were looking at with just the example of the wide receivers. Look at DJT in spot 11, who didn't draft a receiver until the 7th round. He goes 6 players, and then he goes 5 receivers in a row. So you got to think how that's going to play out. I know we got Mix and Eckler. Like, he got some really solid running backs. Receivers, Juju could end up being great as probably the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City because, Mahomes is going to get him the ball. Like, all of these, like, he has a decent, like, receivers. Obviously, he's not going to have any top players considering he picked them so late. But, I don't know, just kind of an interesting strategy. And you kind of look across the board, and I like Sleeper, seeing, like, the color difference and stuff. It kind of helps to, like, visualize it a little bit more. I don't know, it's just kind of interesting the way that everybody kind of makes their own picks and decides where they're going to go with things.
Yeah, the DJ's team is interesting, right? Because, like you mentioned, if you are going to go running back, you want to go running backs that have that option to catch and are receiving backs, and Mixon and Eckler are that. You also have Kittle, who, I worry about Kittle's health, and, personally, I'm not I would have been hard to decide between him and Waller, but you have Kittle who can catch, and then you don't actually get a wide receiver until Juju, and then you have Kirk and Moore and Gage all the way going down. So it's really interesting to see how different people approach things. And like I mentioned, Mixon and Eckler are going to be great. Do I feel like, after Kittle, the draft for DJ seems to kind of get a little bit like just filling spots? Like Josh Jacobs, I think, has been on a really bad kind of downturn for the last couple years. I think that what everyone thought he was going to be, didn't end up really coming at that. A lot of injuries have hurt him, and then it's interesting to see where it goes. And then right after Zach, takes Devontae, Goose, you have to make a decision to go. You could go running back again and go Aaron Jones, but you decided to go Stephon Diggs. What was your kind of thoughts? With Diggs in his role.
Yeah, I know. For me, I kind of wanted I wanted to not have 2 of the same position, so I kind of was almost kind of dead set on receivers at that point. Really, not for any particular reason other than, I don't know, I didn't want to wait. I mean, for me, I guess I could have come back around and picked another receiver, but for me, I think at that point, Diggs was there. Obviously, I was hoping to get a receiver at that point, and obviously the 3 guys before, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, all went before, and I was just Diggs is still fantastic, but out of that group, I wanted a receiver, and all of those kind of guys fell down, and I was like, I probably need to grab somebody. Higgins and Waddle went after that, and then you get McLaurin and Tyreek, and there's a lot of question marks with some of those guys, but for me, Diggs was, I think, the good pick there. I know he's a little bit on the older side, but at the same time is going to be a great now receiver, and that's what we talked about. I think that was a big thing. I wanted to have a running back and receiver, and not get 2 running backs, and I wanted to make sure that I just had a good, well-rounded team, I guess, is the best way to put it, rather than kind of stacking up and then being short on one side of it. And then, a big part of it is trying to get lucky. A lot of it is luck, too. It's not, there's some skill involved with, knowing who's better than others or who has better chances. But at the same time, it's still a lot of luck. There's some teams that'll just pop off out of nowhere, certain players that'll just go in tears that nobody expected. Jamar Chase is a great example. Both Zach and I in our own respective fantasy leagues last year picked Jamar Chase probably 5th, 6th round, something like that, and he's one of the top receivers in the league. So it's just it's kind of a crapshoot, but at the same time, you just don't know. But I think I was happy with that, and I was just kind of waiting, came back around, and then Lamar went, T. Higgins, Waddle. I had my eye on Tyreek, but at that time I already picked Diggs. I wanted to have a solid quarterback, especially a young quarterback who's good now, who's going to be good for a long time. And it came back around to me, and I decided I didn't want to wait all the way back because then Kyler Murray, Dak went. So not too many quarterbacks went after me, but I decided to go Joe Burrow with my third round. So I kind of had that trio: running back, wide receiver, quarterback, started it out. And then after that, a couple more picks, Zach ended up getting Montgomery.
Yeah, the Montgomery. I actually was thrilled when Montgomery fell to me. I don't know why. I mean, I know Kamara is probably going to be really good for. I don't know. He definitely could last longer just because he doesn't take that many hits because he's more of a pass catcher out of the backfield. I think Mark Ingram's really going to be like the workhorse guy that they hand the ball off to. But he's also going to be suspended this year. And Montgomery, he's 25? And he was, especially with Matt Nagy gone, I think he was a horrible coach. I think Montgomery's just going to be even better this year, especially because the Bears really don't have weapons for receiving wise, and I don't think they trust Justin Fields that much yet. So he should get a really big workload there.
Yeah. No, I think that was a good pick, and obviously wanted to running back. You got the top two wide receivers. At that point, you don't see until that goes Saquon, Zeke going at 4-3 there, which maybe is definitely a little bit questionable because Zeke is definitely kind of going on the downfall there. But I guess from now on, we'll just recap our picks maybe a little bit. First of all, just kind of looking at maybe the next couple rounds, Slay. Is there anything that pops out to you for any of the picks? Or anybody that should have gone maybe fell too far or went too early, or just anything that pops out to you, do you think?
Yeah, well, so when I was kind of just like doing a review of the board, I obviously was looking at like your team specifically. Mm-hmm. I think that both of you did a pretty good job with like your now team. I think if we take a look at your starting lineup, pretty much, Goose, you have Burrow, who I think is a great quarterback, especially with the scoring, a lot of touchdowns, has proven himself to have consistency with the Bengals, has weapons. Joe Mixon's locked in. You got Jamar Chase. You have T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, people that he can trust. You have DeAndre Swift and then Travis Etienne. I think as your running backs look right now, you are definitely like super light on backup there. I think after Etienne and Swift, you drop off to like Jamal Williams. You have like a really big dart throw with Chase Edmonds. I think that's definitely one of your weakest spots is you're going to be your running back depth. You kind of have to have Travis Etienne perform at a top 20, top 18 performance this year if you like want to be like I think considered like a top contender for the league. Your receivers are cool too. I was looking at, I love Diggs. I think Keenan Allen is solid. I think that him and Herb still have like a few more years of like strong numbers there. I think Keenan obviously was really injury prone like 3 years ago, but has kind of broken that curse, which is dope. And then of course you went St. Brown, which I think is just such a homer pick. Of course you would pick St. Brown and DeAndre Swift. The thing with St. Brown is that I think that the rookies that Detroit picked up have a chance to outperform AR really quickly, and it's going to be really big on the Lions this year to determine your success in this dynasty league. If Swift and Brown are, if the Lions only win 3 games, there's a chance that you're definitely not winning the Super Bowl this year, right? But if the Lions are winning 5-6 plus games, that probably means that those pieces are working, and you have guys like Tyler Lockett who are such boom or bust, probably in your flex. Mm-hmm. So I think overall, I was taking a look at this draft grader that we have with the fantasy footballers, and they give your overall starting quarterback in Joe Burrow a B+. Your starting wide receivers, they give you an A. Your flexes with Brown and Tyler Lockett is A as well, and then basically it's like your bench gets like Fs and Ds. Nice. So if anybody gets hurt on your team or sucks, you're kind of like panicking. But overall, I think you have a pretty dope squad.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to get starters in there, and then I think I went a lot more kind of backup. Obviously, I have Williams to be Swift's handcuff. Just kind of Gallup could always be great too as a wide receiver too. I don't know, just it's definitely a lot of question marks. But Well, I mean, like I said, it's a lot of boomer bust stuff, and I think I like what you said with the Lockett boomer bust because it's kind of funny. I had Lockett a couple years in fantasy, and it was always either a Metcalf game or a Lockett game. They would never both go off on the same game. It would always be Lockett would either get 30
One or the
points
other.
or like 5 points. It was kind of funny. So
Yeah.
you're kind of hoping for that, but yeah, no, I think I agree with most of those ratings, and like I said, bench is definitely on the low side right now. And I'm hoping with Jameson Williams as my rookie pick as well. We can get kind of into rookies in a little bit here, but hoping he gets back. Maybe week 6, 7. I think that's kind of where they were aiming. Maybe if he can be good towards the end of the year here. Then I could have either another good flex, another good backup, but that's a question mark as well. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. And then Zach, I was looking at your squad. I also kind of put it through like the rating process and was doing a review. I think Dak is like killer. I think Dak is a great pick as far as like when it comes to a quarterback. I think that's like we give that a B+ grade through our grader. And then looking at your running backs, David Montgomery, I actually agree with your take. I think David Montgomery is honestly like probably a top 12, top 10 running back dynasty as far as like age goes. I think there's a lot of like opportunity for him. James Conner is such a unique player for me. I think he kind of was like before last year, he kind of was like about to fall off into irrelevancy, leaving the Steelers, and then somehow the dude pulls out like touchdowns every single game with the Cardinals, and it's just like their goal line guy, and he was able to get a lot of fantasy points. So if the Cardinals do well, Connor is likely going to be up there again, but he's definitely a question mark. And then I think your wide receivers is definitely a strong suit. Obviously, Kupp and Devontae are going to just honestly win you weeks every single like. There's probably going to be 3 or 4 wins this year for you that come on the back of Kupp and Devontae going off. You got guys like Dallas Goedert who are going to be questionable. I think Goddard is like one of the best like real life NFL tight ends, but when it comes to like what is it going to look like with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, who's going to be getting the targets? It'll be interesting to see that. And then you got a guy like Brandon Cooks, who I have in one of my dynasty leagues, who Brandon Cooks is for PPR leagues is like very consistent because he's pretty much the only player on the Texans that like actually knows what he's doing, and Davis Mills just kind of closes his eyes and chucks it up, and as long as Brandon Cooks doesn't get his like 40th concussion, you pretty much can rely on Cooks day in and day out, right? Traylon Burks as well is definitely, someone who I originally had high and then originally had lower. I was reading some early camp things that like Burks has actually been struggling a lot at camp with the Titans, and that's something to keep an eye on. But I'm hoping that he can, come through for you, and I think your team overall looks good. The places that I think you definitely could get better with is like backup wide receivers. Kenny Golladay is going to be someone that probably is going to be like the best backup wide receiver for you. I know that you have kind of the 2 tight end play with Hayden Hurst on your bench as well, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But I like your team a lot as well. The grader that we have for our website gives you a B+, and then Goose, it gives your team a B. So I think you guys definitely have teams that are like potential playoff teams for sure.
Yeah, I think I like those. I like those grades. I think the draft for me went how I kind of wanted it to. It's a lot of question marks for now, but I'm definitely excited to get into it and see what happens. I guess I don't know how much you can look into it. Is there a team out of the 12 that stands out to you as maybe the favorite from what just a quick glance, just basing off what you've seen? Is there a team that you think has a really good shot to win it, just first glance?
Yeah, so I was like really trying to figure out like what that team would be. I think like looking at the whole squad, the first team that stood out to me for like this year that I really liked their depth, just like in general, was Visible's team. I think the wide receivers there are pretty freaking consistent. Obviously, the running back is a massive issue. You got Jamar Chase, you got Jalen Waddle, you got Gabriel Davis, who I think is going to be a reasonable flex. You got DeAndre Hopkins. So right off the bat, Chase, Waddle, and Hopkins is solid. I know Hopkins is going to be serving a suspension. Calvin Ridley was like this deep shot that Visible took. Ridley is obviously suspended for like, I think it was insider trading or what was it?
He was
gambling.
gambling on the games.
Yep.
Yeah, man. He was gambling, so like that definitely screwed him. But like overall, I think maybe not this year, but Visible I could definitely see coming through next year. You know, I like Dameon Pierce, the rookie he took from the Texans. He also picked up Kyron Williams, who is, you know, Austin Eckler is going to be behind Austin Eckler. So Visible's team like down the road, I think was pretty good. Like, who were some of the standout teams for you on your guys' end?
I know Ian. I think on the power rankings, I actually think I'm 1 right now for this year.
So
and
on
then
Dynasty
Jack
ranker,
is 2, I believe.
Yep. So on Dynasty, once again, it's kind of weird because it values the draft capital a lot more than it probably
don't get me started on draft capital.
Yeah. But it says this season currently Zach has the best team. Peyton, Ja, and then Jack, DJT, Visible. I'm down in 11th for this season. But total roster takes into account a lot of that. And the reason Zach's towards the bottom and Payne's at the top is because of the, I guess, controversial rookie trade. So, Zach, if you want to explain the blockbuster trade that happened for the rookie pick between Peyton and you.
So, obviously, what round was that I took Devin Singletary in round, 8? So, I took Devin Singletary. So, the whole time I'm looking at rookies, I knew I wanted Treylon Burks. I know he's had all the stuff with I know he's had some asthma issues. He hasn't looked great. Yeah. It doesn't worry me that much. Obviously, last year, Jamar Chase was the worst-rated rookie in the preseason. The worst-rated offensive rookie. Same with Penei Sewell. Him and Penei Sewell were the 2 worst offensive rookies per Pro Football Focus in the preseason. So you can't really take that too far into account. And then I was looking at, Singletary, I think eventually either they're going to move on from him, he's going to get hurt, and you don't just spend a 3rd-round pick on a running back who isn't going to play eventually. So I wanted Cook. I knew, obviously, I'm not going to get Cook all the way back at 20, so I needed him in the top 10. So I made a trade. I traded my 1st round next year because, in my eyes, the 1st round next year is going to be the 12th pick because I think I'm going to win this year, just like I'm sure everybody in the league does. So I think it's going to be 12, and then I gave him my 2nd rounder this year. I wasn't interested in anyone really in the 2nd round, and I really wanted Cook. So I moved up, 12 spots, gave him a 1st next year and my 2nd round this year to move up. And nobody liked that. They wanted to, he tried to veto it. Everybody didn't like it. They were scared I was going to leave after this year. And to be honest, I don't care about the draft picks. I want players. I don't care about my pick next year when I can have potentially a starting running back in James Cook.
Yeah, and I hear that, and that's honestly like this is really valid. There are a ton of ways I have seen people win. I once drafted only rookies and like a couple star players early rounds, and that first year I did terrible, and then going on from here on out, I have like all the top running backs because I drafted all the rookies. But people are like, what a terrible strategy. Then I've also done the thing where I just get rid of all my picks and I invest in the players now. I just get like a god squad and stack up for that year, and you win. You're like, that's awesome. You know, when it comes to dynasty wins, like those are hard to come by. So trading your picks, if that is going to get you a win, then like that's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, and then obviously I made a trade later on just to get some draft capital back, which, by the way, I don't plan on keeping. That's going to leave eventually too, probably. But I ended up trading Gesicki. I got another rookie running back, the one in Baltimore, Tyler. I don't know if it's Batty or Beatty. But obviously those 2 running backs, Gus Edwards and, who's their starting running back? I'm blanking. J.K. Dobbins. They both got hurt last year. I don't know if they're going to get hurt this year or not, but I traded Gesicki for Beatty in a 2nd rounder. 2nd rounder I'm going to use for a trade later down the road. I don't want a 2nd rounder. But I got another rookie running back out of it. So I like my rookie depth too. And again, I really don't care about trading the picks when you can have players right now.
I think it was definitely, so pretty much the way to look at it is the trade is for the main rookie trade was pretty much James Cook for Tolbert, and then first round for next year, which could be a lot of different players, obviously. And as you say, you have one of the better teams now, and very well, and probably should be a later first round pick. And you know, who knows next year, you know, what that's going to be. Obviously the draft rankings are going to shake up from now until then, but it's definitely a question mark. And the way Zach put it is, so they try to, in our league, they use this, I forget exactly what the website is, but it's basically
Keep
like
trade cut.
Okay, yeah. So it basically ranks trades, and they try to base it off of that to see if it's fair or not. And if it's not in their eyes, then they veto it. You know, but especially with rookies,
you guys veto your league vetoes.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I will
We're
just
not
tell you
fans.
right off the bat, no dynasty league is going to last longer than a year or two if you're vetoing. Like, in the fantasy world, any league or commissioner that vetoes are the absolute like worst leagues to play for, because the reality is that if people are vetoing and people are wanting trades to be vetoed, then one, they're probably not like at the level of fantasy that they should be in the league. And when you're like wanting to veto something, it's like it makes it so that it makes it so that trades don't happen as often, because people are scared to like come out and say that, hey, I want this player, I want to do this trade. And then you also have to have like a sense of trust where it's like, hey, listen, like if this person sees this player as more valuable than like the rest of the league, like that's fine, as long as there's no like clear corruption and it's not like, you know, like Cooper Kupp for Naheem Hines, which like I think the whole league can clearly understand that this is like, okay, there's something more deeper going on here. But any leagues that I've ever had where people are allowed to veto or allowed to use some sort of like website like Keep Trade Cut to like decide if something is allowed, that's going to destroy a lot of people in the league, low key.
Yeah, because I think
I was on this.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I think what the website gives a lot of value to the first round pick that he gave up.
I think the first round pick, I think so. Like, for example, I think someone like a Mike Evans is worth around 5,500 on there. It's just the point value they give it, and so is a first round pick. To me, what would I rather have, a first round pick or somebody who I know is going to be a wide receiver 1 this year? Obviously, I value Mike Evans way, way more than I value a first round pick next year. I could take, like, I'm just trying to think of someone. I could take Jalen Reagor with my first round pick next year, and then I missed out on Mike Evans for Jalen Reagor, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't value the draft picks. They do, which I don't get. As long as, if I'm agreeing it's a good trade, and the person I'm trading with agrees it's a good trade, like you said, Slay, as long as it's not some, like, a top 10 guy for some bum who barely plays, as long as it is in the realm of being a fair trade eventually, I don't understand why you'd veto it. Very well, James Cook could be a top 12 running back in 3 years.
Yeah.
And Jalen Tolbert and whoever he takes next year could both be out of the league in 3 years.
Yeah.
As you said, Zach, the way you put it is like there's a world in which both of you win the trade. Like there's it's not like very clearly one of you just won the trade, because it's draft picks. You don't know. So I think for something that's so egregious, then obviously it makes sense. But if it's in the realm of being, regardless of what a website says, right? Because it's draft picks. You just don't know. And Zach obviously sees a guy in James Cook where he's like, I think he could be really good. I'm going to make the trade for that. And Peyton obviously valued that first round pick that he saw. Peyton thought that he just scammed Zach. So he's like, I want that first round. I get another pick back this year. Tolbert could be good. It looks like he might start or at least be a wide receiver 3. Definitely get some touches this year. You know, it's completely up for interpretation. Exactly.
It's always perspective. And like Peyton might take a look right now at his team and be like, okay, listen, I might not have Kamara. You know, outside of Kamara, if I don't have Kamara, then I only have Najee and Cordell Patterson. So that's not the strongest running back lineup. Debo is a solid receiver, and Chris Godwin is consistent as well. You have some flyers with like DJ Moore, who like I think all of us have wanted to get to that elite level, but it's still kind of on the edge. And then Allen Robinson could be a really great factor with Matt Stafford this year, but he might be thinking like, hey, I'm playing this for the longer term. Next year's rookie draft is actually insane. The college prospects coming up next year are wild. So if you can get a first-round pick, I could totally see the perspective of like, hey, I want to get that. And maybe he's convinced that Zach isn't going to do as well as he thinks, and like that should be between each team manager. Like that should be their decision. And if the rest of the team like has to have input or like click yes or no to like vote if it gets passed, then I think that completely diminishes the purpose of like any individual management. Because like imagine if the Detroit Lions did a trade of Matt Stafford to the Rams and every single other NFL team got a say. What kind of NFL league is that? Like the teams get to decide what they want to do. If one team clearly is not good, they're going to suffer the consequences. And then eventually, if they just keep losing, they're going to start whining, and then you'll kick them out of the league and put someone that actually knows how to play fantasy, and they'll join and start building up over time. So I think the whole like voting on trades and vetoing is just like a really good way to like have that be a 2-year dynasty,
Yeah, and I think kind of one of their explanations for it, I think most of these guys were in their own dynasty last year, and I guess there was a couple trades that went through that kind of ruined somebody's team. I don't know the details of any of it, and I don't think that's an excuse. Apparently, I think it was the owner. I don't know if he got screwed by a trade or something like that, but pretty much the league that they had, the owner just pretty much deleted it. So, and I think they said it was because of a trade.
Yeah, you have to know who's in your league, right? Like, Goose, like you and Zach are close friends, and Goose, you probably have like 3 or 4 really close people that are also in this league. But then there might be 1 or 2 people that like just randomly joined because you needed to fill a spot. That could be dangerous because they could like quit halfway through the season, and then like when you quit in a dynasty, like that's massive implications. Then if that one person's like, screw it, like I just want to like root for like my favorite teams, I'm gonna go trade you Justin Jefferson and Nick Chubb for Ezekiel Elliott because I'm a Cowboy fan. Screw this, I'm doing bad the first 5 weeks. Then that's where I can see people being like, I want to veto it. Well, you can't, because that's what that manager wanted to do. But at the end of it, like I think that's one of the things that's most important about even starting a dynasty is like, do you know everyone that's in this dynasty? Do you trust that everyone is understanding of, going to be committed? Because, redraft is cool. And I've had a couple of YouTuber leagues, even with yourself, Goose, where like, it's awesome. We're really hyped like the first 10 weeks, then people kind of forget about it. I think we probably had like 2 or 3 teams in a couple years ago that like just stopped, changing bye week players, and it affected everyone. And thankfully there was no money on the line, but I think
but that's also
kind
of the reason. Yeah,
totally. Money, having some sort of incentive, like money or a trophy, is going to be massive. Trying to start a dynasty league with people that you may not be entirely like best friends with no money, you're going to get those issues.
Oh, absolutely. And I think so. I think it's $100 each year for this one. And one thing that I think that we really liked about it was the fact that obviously there's prizes. I think it's first, second, third, and then the winner of like the toilet bowl gets like $20 or something. But also every single week the highest scoring team gets $20. So that's an extra incentive to keep playing, because you get a team that's at the bottom gets a lucky random week, you get $20 back, even if it's so it's at least something back. So that's really cool. It's like I said, you need incentives with, especially in a dynasty league this important. It's important, and I think that's another big. That was kind of one of their issues with Zach's trade, because instantly he trades his first next year, and Zach is only my friend in real life, and they don't know him, so that was exactly what you described. They don't necessarily trust him right away, and they don't really have a reason to, because they don't know him. It's only me. So it's like they were a little bit concerned, like I said, that he's so willing to give away his first-round pick. But it's like, I don't know, it's a dynasty league, and most of these, I don't know most of these guys, super well. Like, I know a few of them through YouTube and stuff, but that's about it. Yeah. So, like you said, with having the money on the line and, a way to keep people engaged is, I think, important. So, as of right now, I think everybody's into it, and we'll have to see. But that was, like I said, with Zach's trade, that was a big point. But, yeah, I think the draft went, how I wanted it to. I think Zach's team, Zach, I don't know if you have any final kind of thoughts on how you think it went.
I think my team. I think obviously my team's won the championship this year. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
On record.
I like the
Cup,
confidence.
number 1 wide receiver again, and I'm winning the championship with Bailey Zapp on my.
With Bailey Zapp on your team. So
your squad, the Bailey Zapp pick at the end. I saw. Can we also quickly chat about like the Tim Tebow pick in the 19th round? That's pretty legendary.
That might have been that might have been the steal of the draft. Tim Tebow, you never know.
Yeah.
God could come down and give this man another NFL career.
And like I think, speaking of Waddle's team, I actually like his team a bit. I think Josh Allen is a really strong guy. He has Kyle Pitts, who's a fantastic top dynasty tight end for me. Metcalf, who is, still a bit unproven, obviously a freak athlete. And then, but like people forget about some of these rookies like Breece Hall really late in these rounds. Even DJ was able to slide in Ken Walker. And, for someone that has Mixon, Eckler, and Jacobs, and also now has Ken Walker, like you have to think that DJ is going to be trading one of these running backs eventually to try and get a top receiver. But yeah, there's a lot to go around. And to kind of, I think to wrap things up, what team do you think is like the most screwed from each of your perspectives? Like for this year, if you're taking a look at like who do you want to go up against week 1?
Ooh, I'll have Zach go first here.
I almost.
Who did we think? Well, I think was it Oscar's team that we were like we didn't think was great.
Oscar's team is a little iffy. I thought. Besides, obviously, he's got a good quarterback, and then he's got a good. He does have a really good running back 1 in Javonte. Deontay Johnson at wide receiver 1 was definitely a little iffy, just because they've got a new quarterback. You don't know. For Kenny Pickett might not be great. You never know. I think Najee's going to get more touches than he did last year solely because you just don't want to throw a new quarterback in like that. So you just don't know how Deontay Johnson's really going to function in the new offense. And then Marquise Brown's production is going to drop off after, week 6 or 8 when Hopkins comes back. And then to go along with that again, Michael Thomas, we haven't seen him play in 2 years. So could Michael Thomas come back and be a top 5 receiver in the league? Yes. Could he come back and not be the same, even close to what he was? He could. You just never know. His receivers are just all iffy to me. And then Zeke Elliott, I don't like his pick at all.
We were talking. I don't know. Everybody else, it's kind of hard, right? You see Peyton, who picked Deshaun Watson, was definitely a questionable pick. Obviously, he's got Rodgers, so he's fine this year. But I don't even know if he has another quarterback. He doesn't. So Peyton's definitely. That was another one. I don't know. I think everybody, at least gets some decent players and has chances, right? You got to look more like the kind of the boomer bust this year and the future. Kind of who went younger, who went, for older guys and tried to win now. I think Oscar is definitely the one that could be very good and at the same time may just not have a good year at all. So definitely something to take note of and see.
Deontay, I agree. That Deontay is a strange pick, man. I would be taking Godwin, Pittman, Waddle, Moore, Higgins, Metcalf, all before Deontay, and DK Metcalf actually fell pretty freaking far, to be honest. Getting him in the back of the 3rd round, that's a pretty freaking solid value, especially if he's able to develop into that, true wide receiver 1. Being able to start off with Pitts, Allen, then Metcalf, that could be, top 2, 3 of each position there. For the future to come. And then obviously Barkley is such an interesting pick. And I know that you, Zach, personally skipped Barkley to go with Montgomery. I think that, obviously Barkley is still really young. I think I would have gone Montgomery, but I'm sure you probably were thinking about Barkley.
Yeah, I think Barkley could definitely come back and be very, very good this year. I know they've been using him at mini camps. They've been using him in the slot too. So he could get a lot more targets in the passing game as well. So he could very well be a top 5 running back again this year. Just he's been hurt so much, and I don't know. I know he says he trusts that knee again, but I don't know if he really trusts that knee again until you see him.
Yeah. And then I guess the only thing I'll add is I think they're a really big dark horse candidate this year that could give you, Zach, a run for your money is going to be Jack. I think Cam Akers honestly, from when he got back from his injury, which he got back so miraculously fast, he looked great in those playoffs. Having Akers, Henry, you have Lamb, you have Evans who are going to be consistent. You have that stack with Evans and Brady. I think if Tyreek Hill can figure stuff out with Tua, that's great. I think Jack has a really great starting team. Michael Carter, I was like high on until, of course, they drafted Brees because I think, Brees is going to be taking majority of those snaps. But the Gronk pick, I'm assuming this was probably drafted before he officially retired.
Yep.
And then Garrett Wilson as a jet receiver down there is not something to be forgotten. I think Garrett Wilson is a really great receiver and could come to life if the Jets. So I think Jack definitely has like kind of this underrated vibe on his squad. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. Like I mentioned, getting Kupp and Devontae Adams for the next 2 to 3 years is just going to carry you. And I think, honestly, like for you, Zach, if you can turn, Goddard and a pick or Goddard and Watkins for like a better tight end, or if you could try and go out there and pick up someone, if James Conner has a good first like 5 or 6 weeks with the Cardinals, use Conner to turn around with like Burks or with a pick and get, a better running back like a Kamara who maybe is still suspended, or like, someone that is a little bit more reliable, like an Akers potentially for the future. That could be, you definitely could be setting up for success there.
Yeah, that's another thing about having the rookies instead of a draft pick is if the rookies, let's say, I don't want Singletary to get hurt, obviously, but if he did and James Cook ends up being what I think he's going to be, then you could turn James Cook into someone even Javonte Williams. If he's playing really well, like you could turn a Javonte Williams and Dallas Goedert into an even better running back. Like you just never know with the rookies how good they're going to be. The rookies are really going to, I think, decide the league this year just because you can turn them into a better player from some of the other teams. But I also think Jack is probably my biggest competitor this year.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit, for me in my recent leagues, I've never done Dynasty before. I think trading is going to be something that I need to take advantage of. And obviously trades are how you get different players, right? In other fantasy leagues, like I have a keeper league, we get to keep 3 keepers every single year, so you kind of get some of your base players, but then you just kind of say, okay, I didn't win this year, but next year I'll draft a better team or whatever, The Dynasty, you can't do that. If your team's not good, you got to trade your way out of it, get lucky with rookies, but mainly it's really trading that's going to set teams apart and really change the board up. So I'm very excited to see how things shake up, and I got to learn my trading ways. I know Zach's been hot on the trade market, so hopefully maybe me and him can get a deal done or something. But yeah, very, very excited to see how the league shakes up.
Yeah, send me Swift straight up right now. I'll give you Ronald Jones and a 4th for Swift right now.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one, believe it or not.
Oh, man, come on. That was a value, man. Ronald Jones, dude.
Oh,
man, Ronald's going to be like an absolute...
Okay.
Ronald, he's going to be a fantastic grocery bagger here coming up.
No. Ronald is going to be good this year, I'm telling you. Ronald is going to get the starting job, and he's going to be a top 25 running back.
Hey, I know Clyde's... I mean, there's a world in which Clyde and Ronald Jones have a good tandem.
Clyde is garbage.
You get a really... Yeah, I know Clyde's not that good, so that could end up being a very solid pick. Even, that was 10th round? That could be almost a sleeper in a way. I'm not... who knows, but it's all question marks. But at the same time, that still could end up being a very good pick late. So...
Yeah. They might let Ronald do some of the goal line work, which they never let Clyde do. And I was one of the Clyde suckers that jumped on him. Which obviously him going to the frickin' Chiefs and all of his prospect early on was super great, and then you never can really trust with how Andy Reid is going to work his running backs. I think outside of him, I think probably the running backs that you can never trust in fantasy ever are Bill Belichick running backs, because he'll have a practice squatter come up and just become their star, and you're like, what? What about Damian Harris? What about all these different players that was supposedly supposed to be the guy? It's kind of getting confusing like that this year for the Chiefs as well. So I know there was a little bit of question around who the Buffalo back is going to be. I think Singletary like had a strong kind of ending last year to prove that like he can be the guy. I'd be really interested to see if they try and like push him to be the guy, given that they did go for Cook. But that's going to be a big determining factor, Zach, if you're going to win this year, is if Connor can be reliable and Singletary can step to the plate. I think you're going to have a hard team to beat each week. But there's a world where Connor, where the Cardinals suck with Hopkins out early on and just aren't consistent. Connor's not getting those touchdowns like he needs. And then Singletary is, in a split backfield, and you're like, who else am I starting outside of Montgomery? Like, am I going to get the 7 points from Ronald Jones each week? Am I going to, have to like put Gaskins in there? There definitely is a question there with the running back.
I will throw it out there. I don't think Myles Gaskin is going to be on my team for too long. Just gonna put that out there. I think he's terrible.
Miami was tough because they have 4 really running backs that there's a world in which some of them are like, I have Edmonds, Gaskin. They signed Mostert, who gets injured every single year.
He'll be hurt by week 2.
Who's the other one? Is it Michelle? Michelle's the other one.
Michelle, Edmonds, Gaskin, Mostert. Yep.
Yeah, so it's just who knows with Miami, honestly. So that's a big question mark, I think, too. So
yeah.
we will have to see with that and the whole league in general. So I think we're going to wrap things up for this episode here. So the goal is we'll maybe do 1 or 2 more of fantasy-style videos, or at least include them in our videos over the next few months before the NFL season starts. And the goal is we want to do kind of a weekly NFL recap episode where we're going to be talking about the games for that week and kind of highlight fantasy. We're going to talk about our fantasy leagues. Obviously, we were going to focus very heavily on this Dynasty League because we kind of want this to be almost our YouTube league, where we're going to be able to talk about everything here and weekly kind of update how the matchups went, how stuff is going on, just fantasy in general. I think it'll be really cool for you guys to follow along and just kind of see how we play it and how the rest of the league plays it, and just kind of get kind of an in-depth kind of knowledge from our sides, and hopefully get to see a championship from one of us or somebody else here in the league. But I'm very, very excited to get on with this other NFL content, and you will definitely be seeing more of all of us very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching this video, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.